Thanks very much, Jerry, and it's nice to come back to the Latrobe Valley, somewhere that I spent a lot of time in my former career, and I'm reminded that if I spent nearly 8 years at ESAA this week, I've spent 8 years at the Institute, and that might be quite troubling, actually. It may mean I'm about to move someplace else, but in this case, that would be the board moving me on, and I hope that's not the case just yet. Some of what I'm going to cover today has already been touched on by a number of the speakers, but I think we've got some bigger global pictures that are worth sharing with you because you're not on your own in this journey. So what is the Global CCS Institute? Well, we're enjoying our 10-year anniversary at the moment. We're actually these days an international think tank. We're backed by governments, businesses and NGOs, and our mission is simple. It's to accelerate the deployment of CCS globally. We're a member-owned company. We're headquartered in Melbourne, but we also have offices and staff in Washington, DC, London, Brussels, Tokyo and Beijing, so we really are global. We have 62 members in total, and it's a very wide range of members. We have very large governments. We have multinational energy companies, we have technology providers, research organisations, and we do actually have a number of green NGOs who are members. We are proud to say that we were first established by the Australian government, but today we enjoy the backing of a much broader set of members, and those members are indeed our owners. So the context for us is that the Paris Agreement targets are actually very, very challenging. And you saw some of those in some of the IEA's work earlier today. And the way we view this is that what Paris actually says is that we need a new energy economy. And it's very clear that electricity is at the heart of that and that it's transformational. But we also need new zero and ultra-low emission fuels. And CDR has now crept into the language, and I'm sorry about that, but this is carbon dioxide removal. It's going to be required simply because there is, in my view, and a lot of people better qualified than me, almost no chance that we're going to make 2 or 1.5 degrees on abatement action alone. We're actually going to have to take carbon dioxide directly out of the atmosphere and deal with it. Today we're not going to deal with how that comes about, but you can rest assured CCS plays a role, and there's another opportunity for this region. But I think what's exciting is that hydrogen is fast emerging as a part of this decarbonisation roadmap. And in fact, it's so new that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's very important report released last year on how to get to 1.5 degrees actually does not include hydrogen at all, because at that time there was not sufficient peer-reviewed articles to include it in their modelling. So already the 1.5 degree report is probably somewhat out of date. But hydrogen's attractive because of its zero emissions, its flexibility as a fuel. It has really big opportunities in high heat need applications. Think steel making, for example. And its energy density and its transportability features add to its attractiveness. I stole this. I stole it from Alan. But the point to this is not so much what are the components of all of this, and I'm sorry, it's actually much brighter when you print it out, so sorry. But it's really that in 2015, there was 8 exajoules. An exajoule is just such a big amount of energy, you can't begin to imagine it. 8 exajoules of hydrogen produced. And in the next 35 years, it's expected to roughly increase tenfold based on the demand that can roughly be estimated at this stage. And I think what's interesting is you get all of these new applications for hydrogen in that period. So it is clearly an incredibly important set of opportunities globally. Well, I'm sorry you can't see this so well, but what we say is CCS is significant for hydrogen production. And I want to make something really clear at this point. At the Institute, we do not see that this is a competition between technologies about how you decarbonise. every technology is required. Electrolysis is going to be vital for hydrogen production, but in our view, and the view of a lot of other analysts, it's not enough on its own, and you do need to be producing hydrogen, as it already is, from fossil fuels, but you've got to add CCS to it. And I think what I like most about this is that it actually shows the wide range of opportunities that you get when you go down either a gasification or a steam methane reforming path with CCS, because suddenly you are starting to open yourselves up for new industries around chemical production, steel plants, fertiliser production, refineries. It's not simply about the production of hydrogen, it's actually about the creation of a whole series of new industries and opportunities, often in places that otherwise mightn't be looking so attractive into the future. Something that hasn't really been discussed that much today is around costs. And this is from the International Energy Agency, actually only a few months ago, on their hydrogen study. And just so as we can be clear about this, this is the cost of production of hydrogen. It's averaged across the world. It's not specific to Australia. And what they find is that in 2018, natural gas production-based production of hydrogen is somewhere between $1 and a bit over $2 a kilogram. Natural gas with CCUS, we could talk about the difference between CCS and CCUS, but it's a little irrelevant for these purposes. It's somewhere around $1.75 to $3. Coal, but highly emissive, so we should be cautious about this, is somewhere in between those two gas numbers. But for renewables, we're going to start at $3 and go north. So as of today, actually the lowest cost to produce hydrogen is from steam methane reforming with CCUS, and we have experience of that, and we'll come to that in a moment. But Alan, once again, has been very kind to have done excellent work for me, and we're now looking forward to 2030 with a whole series of very sound pieces of analysis and some thought about what's going to happen on learning rates and how you actually move technologies forward. And this is where it gets really interesting and where I think we've got great opportunity and why you should not rule out any of the options here. Because what you see is electrolysis with renewables sits somewhere just under $3. And there are lots of ranges here for good reason. But if we just take these midpoints, they're good comparators. So about $3 for electrolysis, natural gas without CCS, a bit over $2. But with CCS, not much more. And this is largely because of likelihoods of carbon prices which are being taken into account. Coal with CCS is highly competitive. And what we see really, and the message from this is, all of these numbers are incredibly close. There is no clear winner here. And so it's going to be a case of the particular location, the particular facility, and a whole series of what turns out here in terms of actual costs rather than model costs. But the good news is all of the numbers are way down from where you see grid-based electrolysis. So this is the future, this is where we need to get to. What I want to share with you is what's happening in the world around hydrogen that's being driven out of fossil fuels and has CCS applied. And so that's really this line through here. And this vertical line is where we are today. So already in operation we have a plant called Great Plains Air Products, both of those in the United States, both of those producing hydrogen and both of them using carbon capture and storage for their CO2 emissions. Quest is a really interesting plant in Canada, owned by Shell, commenced 3 years ago, has captured and geologically stored 4 million tonnes of CO2, and Shell's now doing the business case for the next one on that same facility. And then these plants are all in various stages of either advanced planning or very close, in one case, to final investment decision. So this too is in Canada, the Alberta Carbon Trunkline Sturgeon Refinery, which again is a hydrogen production plant. The Port of Rotterdam is decarbonising by putting in place a very large collection process for CCS, and there is a hydrogen production plant there that will be tied into it. And then all of these out here, including CarbonNet, are further plans for hydrogen-based systems with CCS, and they're quite large. And these two, three actually, four, are all in the UK, are all around replacing methane in large part with hydrogen, and are in one case here, in fact two cases, both Acorn and Magnum, are around currently gas-fired power plants that will be converted to hydrogen. So we actually have a lot of other activity elsewhere in the world already on hydrogen production and hydrogen applications involving CCS. And that's because, as of today, it's actually the cheapest route to large-scale hydrogen production. And I mentioned that Great Plains plant. There's a little bit of detail about it, and it's really here to show you that this isn't new technology. This is actually very well understood technology. It has great opportunity to further develop and in fact to increase its capture potential to the sorts of levels that our good friends from J-Power are talking about. But this has been operating since October 2000, so we've been running nearly 19 years at Great Plains. It's brown coal gasification. So if anybody wants to tell you that brown coal gasification hasn't been done before, they're wrong. It's being done and has been done for a long time. It's so far captured and transported 35 million tonnes of CO2, and it has been used for enhanced oil recovery, but that is essentially exactly the same process as putting it down for pure geological storage. The technology is understood. There is no mystery about this. What we need is more application to improve capture rates and to lower cost. And I think that's exactly shown by the sorts of examples that Alan has in his graphs. So I wanted to just reflect then, if that's what's going on, why does hydrogen, CCS and the Latrobe Valley all fit together? And a bunch of other speakers, and especially Richard Bolt, have spoken passionately to that, but I feel quite strongly about it as well. Because as anybody comes into this area, you know, because it's so obvious, you've got abundant, ultra-low cost brown coal that has hundreds and hundreds of years. Is it sensible to simply see that as a stranded asset, or is it actually smarter, as ACI has done, to see this as a carbon resource? You've also got extensive sunk cost infrastructure, a highly skilled workforce with outstanding tertiary education facilities, of which we're standing in them today. And this extractive resource familiarity in the community is not to be underestimated. It's one of the great advantages that regions like yours all around the world that I visit regularly have over many other areas. You are familiar with this. It's not surprising to you. There's nothing here actually that's going to frighten you or cause you to be concerned. And the most amazing thing for this region is how well characterised the geological storage is very nearby and offshore. And believe me, it's one of the best sets of geological storage opportunities anywhere in the world. And we have taken, and you can find it on our website, we've actually got full catalogues of where the storage exists in the world. There is no shortage, but this area has an extraordinary abundance of it. We go to the UNFCCC conferences each year. There's a few tragics in this room who've made a career out of it. It's not mine, I have to tell you. In fact, it's a bit of a trial. Mark Bonner's here, he can tell you. He loves it. I'm not so taken with it. But it's the place that every year all the governments come together to do their negotiations around climate change. And one of the big topics that's been there for the last 5 years or so is this thing called just transition. And we really have the organised labour movement to thank for putting this on the agenda, because this is about regions like yours. This is about what happens to the workers who are otherwise displaced, have no future, communities who are in strife, because the traditional old energy processes can't continue in a carbon-constrained world. And I know that the Victorian government has activities and commitment here, and I'm certainly not criticising it. But the point that I want to make is that what we're seeing all around the world, and what I'm really proud of, is that we have seen a number of unions starting to join us. And the International Brotherhood, I'm sorry about that, ladies, but that's what they're called, the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers in the United States has actually joined. And they're right on this because their point is that people with their skills, living in often communities that are fossil fuel based and often coal based, have a lot to gain by adopting CCS and moving into a new energy economy, a new carbon economy that revitalises, in fact, all of those communities, gives them a future, but it gives them a future that's sustainable, not a future that's actually heading off into a place that really the planet now, our children, can't afford. So for this community to sort of reprise, in a sense, Richard Bolt, you've really got it all. And I think in a carbon-constrained future, as confronting as that has been, and clearly the closure of Hazelwood's related to it, but climate change doesn't mean no fossil fuels, it means no CO2. You have got to address the CO2 question, and sometimes it means you're not going to use the fossil fuels, but a lot of the time it means it's an incredibly valuable resource and there's technology to deal with it. And that's where we need to go to. And I finish, and maybe you can see it, maybe you can't, but it's beware the competition. Beware the competition. I spend nearly 4 months of my year overseas talking to lots of different governments in lots of different countries. And the recurring question I'm getting now is, we'd like to talk to you about hydrogen because we think that could be a big opportunity for us. And the last set of discussions I had on that, only 3 months ago, was in the Middle East, where they have the cheapest gas, probably the best storage, and they already know really well how to do LNG. In fact, as good as it is that we're the leading LNG exporter at the moment, that will change within the next 12 months and Qatar will go back ahead of us again. The Middle East is a serious competitor. Don't underestimate them. And if we're too slow, we will miss this boat. There's lots of others that are on it as well. So, thank you. Hopefully, Jerry, I've been short and given you time for questions for all of us. Thank you.